out of the night out. You're tuning to Wrestle Talk. 657-383-1521. We'll be discussing WWE, NXT, Lucha Underground, ROH, fantasy wrestling, and we'll have some of the best dance interviews for professional and independent wrestling that you've ever heard.
And I'm Joe Lamb. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle your seatbelts, keep your arms in the vehicle at all times. Wrestle Talk begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enjoy the ride.
Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, oh my goodness, it is that time. Once again, it is Wednesday night. It is 8 o'clock Eastern time. That means one thing and one thing only. If you are listening to the sound of my voice, you have made a wise decision. You are listening to the Wrestle Talk podcast with Joe and Renee, and oh my goodness, do we have a show for you tonight? We've got the High Spot segment. We got the Shoot and Shout segment. We got the Wrestle Talk podcast game show challenge. We got the Fantasy Wrestling segment. We got the Snippets of Truth. And if that's not enough, we've got Bob McGee coming on at 7:30 or 8:30, I should say. And then we got John Cosper coming on at 9:30.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, WrestleMania is right around the corner. That means that Universe Mania is right around the corner. We've got our mugs up, ready to go. We've already sold a couple of them. And if only I had one with me right now, it would go great with my Dos Equis that I'm about to drink. I'm making all kinds of noise tonight. I'm just so excited right now. I feel like I am back to my roots, because normally I do the podcast in another room, but that room is being occupied right now, so I had to go down to the depths of the basement to where I used to do the podcast, and here I am again, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness, this brings back a lot of memories. I've talked to a lot of people in this basement. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. No, but without any further ado, let me go ahead and bring in the man, the myth, the legend, the man that needs no introduction, the Night Owl.
Unmuted. Oh my goodness.
Wonderful. I'm fired up, Renee. I'm fired up.
¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? Loyal members of the Wrestle Talk family, your boy the Night Owl, checking in from somewhere in BFE, Bungfuck, Missouri. And let me tell you something, man. Listen, no, I'm in Columbia handling some personal business out here, trying to expand the show, trying to handle some business, work-related or whatnot. Just before I even go anywhere, man, I just want to send a special shout out to my beautiful wife and my children. Didn't expect to be out of town these next couple of days, but it is what it is. And believe it or not, Jonesy, I'm actually going to turn around, go back home Friday, and then be right back here in the St. Louis area on Saturday for World League Wrestling. And in between that, on Friday night, your boy will be calling the action over at Midwest Elite Wrestling. Brandon Gomez, Thomas Pacheco, Mike Seipkis, the whole Buffet Club, that whole gang. I love y'all, and I wouldn't miss it for the world, bro. But yeah, it's kind of weird, bro, because you're the white dude and you're drinking Dos Equis, right? And then I'm the Mexican guy and I'm drinking like some Founders IPA. So I think we're a little crossed up today, but it's all right because we don't discriminate, man. As long as the beer is what?
Renee, I choose to jump on you a little bit. I don't want to do this, but where the hell is my bullet, my Buffet Club T-shirt?
oh, you mean the one I'm wearing?
Yeah, the one that you read. I saw these.
Okay, so
T-shirts, and I'm like,
so listen. So listen, like my cousin Los always says, what does he always say? He says, oh, see, what had happened was, See, here's the thing, Jonesy. That shirt, bro, I have it, but I've been using it because much like a baseball glove, if I give you the shirt broken in, it's going to feel way more comfortable when you eventually get it. How's that sound?
That is definitely true, but
that's not true. Why are you lying?
That just means when I come to. That just means that when I come to Kansas City,
there he is.
I'll have a T-shirt. So
you will. And all kidding aside, I do have your shirt. It was hanging up at eSports for about 3 months. We got it though. It's never been worn, and you're gonna get not only your Wrestle Talk Podcast T-shirt, but you're also gonna get the mug at our Universe Mania watch party. Real quick, guys, I know we got a lot to get through today. Huge shout out to everybody tuning in on the Facebook Live. Shout out to Nelson. Much love to you on Saturday, bro. You and Kenny are one of the main reasons that I'm going to be at WLW. Shout out to Susie in West Virginia. Shout out to my man Curtis up in the Big Dub. Shout out to Johnny Rocco. I'll see you on Friday. Shout out to Rick Olson. Shout out to David Smooth as Satin Catton, doing big things, reviving tag team wrestling in Kansas City. Appreciate everybody that's tuning in, man. It's overwhelming to see all of you guys on the Facebook Live. Please tap the screen. We love to see the thumbs up. We love to see the hearts go across the screen. But more than anything, we really, really love it when you share this broadcast. That's really what helps grow the Wrestle Talk Podcast the most. But Jonesy, man, we got a lot to get into today, bro. I know you kind of previewed it a little bit, man. Is it time to get into action or what?
Oh, absolutely. It is definitely time to get into action. But first, before we do anything else, you know what we have to do, Renee?
What's that, bro? What's that? What do we got to do?
Oh, my goodness. Do I have to tell you every single time? We have to pay homage.
Ah, you're right, Jonesy. You are right. You are right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to ask you to respectfully remove your caps and place your hands over your heart as we pay homage to the greatest country on God's green earth, and that's America, damn it.
Oh, say, can you see as rocket I'll make up for it now. Oh, the land of the free.
Absolutely. It brings a tear to my eye every single time. And I got to tell you something.
What do you got?
One of my friends had me cracking up today, Renee.
Why?
One of my friends had me cracking up today. Travis Dufour, he's a local wrestler. We've had him on the show. But he cut this Facebook, he cut this promo where he's talking about everybody needs to cut promos like R. Kelly cut today. When he did his interview on Good Morning America or whatever it was, and he starts going off and screaming and crying, and he's like, if every wrestler cut a promo like that, wrestling would be absolutely amazing. I was laughing so hard.
Got him! Got him!
Oh, man. And you know what, Jonesy? That is awesome. And let me tell you guys, my cousin Stitchnut is sitting in my cousin Stitchnut sitting in the back. We had some business we had to come and handle out here. There he is. He's a big supporter of the Wrestle Talk Podcast. He ordered like 6 mugs already. So if y'all haven't ordered a Wrestle Talk Podcast mug for $15, you're slipping on your pippin' and you're slacking on your mackin'. But guess what? We never are, baby. It's episode 236 of the Wrestle Talk Podcast. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to get into what we like to call the high spot segment. Intern Timmy, hit the music.
We have now taken over your radio.
Hit 'em high, hit 'em high, hit 'em high. If you hit 'em low, hit 'em low, hit 'em low.
Took the hole. You ain't got no game. I'm breaking it out the rain, coming through like the train. Something to take over the whole room. Just my goal.
Oh my goodness. What can we talk about tonight on High Spots? Well, I guess I'll go ahead and I will start it off with everything that happened with Combat Zone Wrestling put it that way. You know, anything can happen in a professional wrestling show, and sometimes it's not the best thing that you want to happen. And you saw the video that I showed you, Renee. Was that not a crazy video?
Well, you know what, Jonesy? I have my thoughts, and I know the members of the Wrestle Talk family have their thoughts. So we're going to encourage everybody to dial that number. It is 657-383-1521. We want to know what you guys think about this situation. And you said, it was House of Hardcore in CCW? Or just I want to make sure I get that right. Okay, House of, so HOG. HOG. Okay, so lay it out for us, Jonesy, because not everybody knows what's going on. And as you do that, we want to make sure, like I said, we want to have everybody call in. We want you to comment. And if you haven't seen it, listen to what Jonesy has to say and then share your thoughts. During the High Spot segment, though, we don't just want to talk about the situation with CZW and HOG. We also want to talk about everything else that's relevant in the world of professional wrestling today. Let me give you guys a couple of quick examples, and then we'll let Jonesy get into the story. So, obviously, you've got the Tommaso Ciampa injury. We want to know what you guys think and how you guys think WWE is going to recover in NXT in particular. Okay, we have the whole situation with Rey Mysterio and Andrade Cien Almas from Durango, Mexico. Shout out to Andrade. Being put on the pre-show. People on Twitter were losing their minds, bro. Okay, and we want to know what you guys think about it. And then, of course, as we near the end of this segment, we're going to do our traditional 10-bell salute because the WWF wrestling legend King Kong Bundy, who had a great rivalry with all the greats, managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan, had beef with Hulk Hogan. You guys know who I'm talking about. We want to know what you guys think, and if you guys could possibly share any of the memories you have of King Kong Bundy, because let me tell you something, Nightmare Jones. Enzo Amore tried to share one of his memories, okay, of King Kong Bundy, and unfortunately, he got the wrong guy, and the internet wrestling community pretty much came together against Enzo Amore, and this is the message that they delivered.
Bullshit.
There you have it. All right, Jonesy, why don't you lay out the story for us, and then we'll move on from there, brother.
Okay, so basically, Combat Zone Wrestling's last show that they had was called Trifecta. And what it was a triple threat tournament to determine who was going to be the last competitor for their best of the best show, which is one of their biggest shows. And also on this show, they had a tag team match for this Combat Zone Wrestling Tag Team Championships between the Rep, which was the Combat Zone Wrestling Tag Team Champions, and a tag team from House of Glory that consisted of Amazing Red, who you may have seen in TNA, and another wrestler, but I can't remember the guy's name. Well, apparently some things didn't go as planned, and the Rep ended up getting pinned. And so they lost their tag team championship. And apparently the guy was supposed to kick out, but he never kicked out. So that caused a huge argument between the two tag teams, and that sent out everybody from Combat Zone Wrestling, and it sent out everybody from House of Glory Wrestling. The promoter of Combat Zone Wrestling comes out, confronts one of the tag teams, the tag team that won the championship, and they basically said, F you, and he pushed them, and as soon as the promoter pushed the wrestler, he gets hit in the head with a water bottle, and then all hell breaks loose. I mean, a legit riot happens. There's bodies going everywhere, people are throwing punches, throwing kicks, and the worst part about it is that the fans were still there. So the fans were all right in the middle of all of these wrestlers fighting, and, you know, a lot of times fans can get into it. So, you know, luckily nobody touched, you know, none of the fans touched one of the wrestlers, because if they did, they may have legit gotten punched because they would have thought it was one of the other wrestlers. And it was just absolutely insane. The video is crazy. There's bodies going over punches and kicks. And because of all this, the people that owned the House of Bully have decided that they are not going to honor the Combat Zone Wrestling Tag Team Championships. They're going to send it back to Combat Zone Wrestling, and the wrestlers that were involved in all this melee, this riot, are no longer going to be booked for Combat Zone Wrestling. So now they have to find 3 more people to enter into the best of the best tournament for Combat Zone Wrestling. So it's absolutely amazing. It's not something that was planned. It was a 100% shoot.
Well, it definitely was real. I've heard people make the argument that it was all staged, and let me tell you what I think. I really, really want to make sure everybody knows what I think about this. Really? Really? Somebody's having a good time on the soundboard tonight. That's fine. That's fine. But listen, even more importantly than what I think, I want to know what the Wrestle Talk podcast family thinks about it. One more time, guys. That number is 657-383-1521. I see already a few of you on hold. We're going to get to you in just a minute because we want to hear what you guys want to talk about. But if you have a thought on this particular topic, we're going to go ahead and push you to the front of the line. My thoughts are this, Nightmare Jones. Ultimately, bro, there is a fine line when it comes to the involvement of the fans in professional wrestling. There is no other sport where the fans are allowed the kind of access to the talent like pro wrestling. Not only are, in most cases, you not behind a barricade at an independent wrestling show, in most cases, you're right there, and it's encouraged that you interact with the wrestlers. That's part of what adds to the allure of independent wrestling. The fact that you can talk to these guys during intermission, you can talk to them after the show. Some promotions have made the mistake of trying to separate their fans from their talent because they feel like maybe they want to keep kind of kayfabe alive or whatever it may be. But in most cases, it's great. But now 2 weeks in a row, Jonesy, we're talking about interaction and dangerous propositions and situations between fans and wrestlers. Just last week, we were talking about the homie from NY, Eddie Kingston, getting real ugly with one of the fans, and the fan probably had it coming. And now you're talking about a flat-out, true blue brawl in professional wrestling. And here's kind of where my concern comes in, okay? At what point do people who are on the fence about professional wrestling decide that they no longer want to pursue an interest in pro wrestling because of what they have been seeing on the internet? We all know that the stories that are negative and the stories just like this, it's what gains traction, okay? You could have 1,000 stories about a wrestler donating his kidney or giving money or rescuing somebody else. As a matter of fact, a pro wrestler recently rescued someone from a car accident. Do I remember his name? I don't, and I blame myself for that. But the fact of the matter is that our culture, our society is far more interested in the negative, in the ugly than they are the positive. And of course, this story is going to gain way more traction than anything positive that could potentially happen. And what makes me afraid is that, again, those people that are on the fence may make the decision that they don't want to pursue an interest in professional wrestling because of stuff like this. Could it have been avoided? Was there a better way to handle it? 100,000%. And what was the craziest thing is that it looked like somebody that was somewhat of an authority figure in the video was like, I'm going to call the cops. I'm going to call the cops. They might have been the owner of the building. I'm not 100% sure. But by that point, it was a melee. And it wasn't constrained into the area around the ring. I mean, these people were all over the place. And Jonesy, I would dare to estimate that there were probably 40 to 50 different people scrapping at a pro wrestling show. So I'm sure there's some diehards out there, especially the fans of CCW and HOG that love this kind of stuff, man. But ultimately, if it's going to scare the fans and it's going to keep them away and it's going to keep the parents with the younger kids not wanting to go to independent wrestling shows, then that hurts the product. That hurts the brand. That hurts the genre. And that is never, ever a good thing, no matter how you slice it. And those are the thoughts of the Night Owl. I want to hear what everybody else is thinking, Jonesy. Who do we got on the line?
Let's see here. Let's go and bring on a guy that calls in every single week, and that is the Bishop. What's going on, Bishop? How you doing, sir?
Night Owl, what's up? How y'all doing today?
We're doing good. We are talking about the riot that happened at the last Combat Zone Wrestling show between Combat Zone Wrestling and House of Glory. And what are your thoughts about a legit riot happening at a wrestling show?
Ooh, well, you know, I read about it briefly, but I didn't hear too much about it. But I mean, I think that it's a legit brawl. You know, that's going to scare off some fans. And I was listening to what Night Owl was saying. You know, it may make them not want to come back. Yeah.
Well, you know what, Bishop?
So like I said, I haven't read the whole article, but you know, I think that would turn people away.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Bishop. And listen, I highly recommend you go back and watch the clip. If you need us to send it to you, I think it's going to kind of surprise you as it did me. I was actually sitting at my computer late last night. My wife walked in to check on me, and I was watching it, and I was like, yo, check this out. What do you think? And she's like, that's scary. That makes me not want to go to a wrestling show. And she doesn't go to a lot of wrestling shows because she's not really a hardcore wrestling fan. So when somebody like that says it, Bishop, I have to believe that there are other people that feel that way. Now that we've talked about that, and we want to encourage you guys to continue to stay engaged here as we wait for our first guest to call in, Bob McGee. That's going to be a great interview. I know you guys are looking forward to it, as am I. Also, Bishop, Rey and Andrade relegated to the pre-show, the Tommaso Ciampa injury, King Kong Bundy passing away. Any of those things you want to talk about, or was there something else you wanted to bring to the table tonight?
Oh, yeah, I definitely want to send my condolences to the family of King Kong Bundy. I mean, he provided a lot of memories for me when I was a kid. And I remember watching him when he was part of the $1 Million Corporation. I don't know if you remember that, Night Owl?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. One of the greatest factions of all time.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, he was a monster in the ring, and he's definitely going to be missed. You know, I'll always remember the 5 count.
I love it. So I got to ask you, though, there was a bit of a kind of a funny situation, Bishop, that happened with a former WWE wrestler confusing George the Animal Steel and King Kong Bundy. I'm going to go ahead and read the tweet for you guys because I think it's worth mentioning here live on the show. Let me see here. I believe there it is. Okay, so here it goes. And you guys are going to get a kick out of this. I'm sure intern Timmy's going to be ready with some sort of drop. So this is Enzo Amore. This tweet has since been deleted. It says, rest in peace, King Kong Bundy. The epitome of pro wrestling the epitome of pro wrestling. I recall going to shows at Madison Square Garden with my grandparents. My grandma, Rafaela, loved him and hyped him up the whole ride in. Plenty of wrestlers risked it all that night, but I will never forget the guy with the green tongue who ate the turnbuckle. Listen.
I did see that post.
Oh, man. Listen, Bishop, we all make mistakes, man. You know, nobody's perfect. And the one perfect guy, I think they hung that guy from a tree about 2,000 years ago. Listen, we're all going to make mistakes. But, man, if you're Enzo Amore and you were in the business, how dare you? How dare you make that sort of mistake, especially after somebody just died? The only thing I could say is, dude, put down the bong and get your mind right. Come on, Enzo Amore. Jeez Louise, that might be the worst tweet. That must be the worst tweet of all freaking time. Bishop, thank you for joining us tonight, bro.
Yeah, no problem, man. You know what? I think Enzo may have been hitting Funky Flex's peace pipe too hard.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to hear about Funky Flex's peace pipe a little bit more later this evening. Thank you, Bishop. Grace and peace to you, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right, talk to you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bishop, dude. I love when the Bishop calls in. Jonesy, bro, we got a lot to cover, but very, very little time, bro. What else did you want to talk about tonight during the High Spot segment?
I think that if anything, we have to talk about Rey Mysterio and Andreas getting regulated to the pre-show for Fastlane. I think that is, in my opinion, I feel that is a bad move. That match should not have been regulated to the pre-show. That is like a main caliber match. And I mean, I guess that it's a good thing because they maybe wanted people to tune into the pre-show, so they put on a match that they knew everybody's going to want to see. But I mean, you know, it's got to have made a couple fans mad, you know, knowing that it's such a match of this magnitude is on a pre-show. But then again, you know, we've already seen them wrestle on SmackDown. So if I was in charge, I wouldn't have even had them face each other until WrestleMania. I would have made their first encounter at WrestleMania. That's just me.
You know what? I think a lot of people share your sentiments, and I couldn't think of a better person to bring on. And I know there's a lot of you guys on hold, so hang tight, and we'll do our best to get to you at some point throughout the show. I love it when the phone lines are full. But we actually do have a resident lucha expert, okay? A lot of you guys that know Andrade is a third-generation luchador from Durango, Mexico, Gomez Palacio specifically, which is only an hour or two away from where I was born and where Stitch Nut back there was born. Say what up, Stitch Nut?
Hello, what up?
Oh, there he is. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the show. One of our favorite guys and one of the most loyal members of the Wrestle Talk podcast family. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, El Luchador de Kansas City.
Everybody.
What's up, Lucha?
Hello.
Lucha.
How's it going?
Lucha. What's going on, bro?
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good tonight. Finally getting a hold of you guys after hearing on the replay in recent weeks.
Well, it's always great to have you on the show, Luchador. You hear we're talking about a lot of different things, covering a lot of topics. We're about 5 minutes away from talking to our friend Bob McGee, one of the best wrestling journalists in the business today, by my estimation. But before we get to him, Luchador, you hear us talking about Andrade and Rey Mysterio. We talked a little bit about the HOG, House of Glory versus CZW Brawl. We've talked about the situation with Enzo Amore and him being a knucklehead and tweeting out, you know, to the wrong superstar after King Kong Bundy passed away. So clearly there are a lot of things that you could touch on if you wanted to this evening, but we're going to go ahead and let you have the floor, man. What do you want to talk about tonight on episode 236 of the Wrestle Talk podcast?
Well, I know there's a lot to talk about. Well, I definitely want to get a talk about here tonight is definitely what took place on Monday Night Raw during the final segments. You know, the situation with Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair. Everybody was thinking that Ronda Rousey vacated the title and they were going to have a championship match for Fastlane, Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, I guess. Then next thing you know, out of the blue comes barging in Ronda Rousey, and she gets her title back. Next thing you know, it's like another match where if Becky Lynch were to win, she'd be added to the match, and if she lose, it would be over. She'd be done with. Next thing you know, what I see, man, the greatest possible heel turn for Ronda Rousey. She said, "Screw the woo, dead men, no more Miss Nice Things," and started beating the hell out of everybody.
That was good, Luchador. I thought that was great.
Yes, it was. Oh, man, yes, it was.
Jonesy, it sounded like you wanted to jump in with Luchador, man. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, dude, I was so excited when that happened. Like as soon as she said it, as soon as she said screw the man, as soon as she said all that, I was like, they actually turned Ronda Rousey heel, and then she started beating the crap out of Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair walks out of just let Ronda Rousey beat the crap out of Becky Lynch, and then the very next night, Becky Lynch got the crap beat out of her again by Charlotte Flair. So,
well, here's my question. Here's my question to both of you.
Yeah.
Did they really turn Ronda heel? I don't believe that they did.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
I think that the days of the clear-cut heel and the clear-cut face are long gone. Okay, there may be certain examples. There's John Cena, okay, who is your clear-cut, unmitigated baby face, will always be a baby face. And I know my man Sonny Mayo's like, turn him heel. You got to turn him heel, right? Mm-hmm. And then there are guys or gals like Stephanie McMahon that no matter what they do will always be the bad guy. They'll always be the heel. But for the most part, pretty much everyone else can sway in any direction. So do you guys truly feel like they turned her heel, or do you think that they turned her real? Because she said it. She's like, I'm tired of being proper. I'm tired of being polite. I'm tired of giving respect and never get anything back. So you know what? We all know that if I wanted to, I could break her face and break her arm at the same time at the drop of a hat. So personally speaking, I don't necessarily know if they turned her heel. I think they turned her real, not heel. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Real? Yeah, kind of. Oh, man. Well, they kind of felt real after that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would have to say myself that they did turn Ronda back to heel because of the fact that she didn't attack Charlotte. She kicked Charlotte once and then the stomach, but most of her attack, like 99% of her attack, was on Becky Lynch. And even after the ball went off the air, she was still attacking Becky Lynch. So, you know, if they turn a heel, that's half her attack. It's Becky Lynch, because Becky Lynch is like so over right now.
That's fair. All right, well, Luchador, we'll let you get your final thoughts in, man, because we are just about 45 seconds away from our first featured guest of the evening. We're going to be talking to Bob McGee. So why don't you let us know what your thoughts are, and then we'll go ahead and let you go, Luchador.
Well, from what I saw after Raw went off the air, that beatdown from Ronda Rousey to Becky Lynch, that felt kind of more real because of what's been transpiring on their, I guess, their Twitter wars recently. So it kind of felt kind of like that, but she became more real than a heel to me.
Well, you know what? We always love and appreciate your thoughts, Luchador. Thank you for being here tonight, man, and we hope to hear from you again in the second hour during the FWWC segment, man.
All right, thank you, guys. Take care.
Grace and peace, brother. Adios. Wow. Good stuff, right, Jonesy?
Absolutely good stuff, but it's about to get even better.
Oh, it is about to get even better. And let me tell you what, we're going to get the music queued up because I'm very, very excited, man. I know that there are a lot of people out here who love professional wrestling, and I think our next guest falls into that category. You know, Bob has been doing his thing, as far as I can tell, all the way back to 1999. And, you know, he's owned and maintained the Pro Wrestling Sheet since 2001. So that is longevity, and I know that's something we talk a lot about here on the Wrestle Talk podcast, man. You can't always be great, okay, but you should always aim for it. But the key is consistency. Bob has been around the world of professional wrestling for many, many years, and he continues to be active today as he writes articles and reviews on Monday Night Raw, kind of or SmackDown or pay-per-views or whatever he kind of feels needs to be talked about. And he's a guy that I particularly admire because he tackles some of the more difficult issues in pro wrestling that not everybody will talk about on a week-in, week-out basis. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, help us welcome to the show for the very first time, the one, the only, Bob McGee.
Mr. McGee, what's going on, sir?
Good
evening. How are you?
Oh, real good. Welcome to the Wrestle Talk podcast. How are you
Thanks
today?
very much. I better make a minor correction before Ryan Set, the Pro Wrestling Sheet, gets a little bothered there. That actually is Pro Wrestling Between the Sheets, which way back when was kind of a pun that the previous owner had, because this was going to be when the internet first started getting into wrestling. The gimmick was Between the Sheets, i.e. between when you got Wade Keller or Dave Meltzer. So Ryan Satin and Pro Wrestling Sheet doesn't feel left out there.
That's fair. That's fair.
Intro.
Correction noted, Bob. You're absolutely right. And I'll tell you what, I'm very excited.
Because he's broken some good, actually really good stuff recently.
Well, he has, absolutely. And I know that's one of our many sources here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. And another one of the sources is you and the writing that you do. I want to actually just dive right into it, and then we can reel it back a little bit. I was listening, or I should say I was reading through one of your recent articles, and it was really, really great because I don't think there are many people who talk about the political effects and kind of the bigger picture pertaining to the WWE. And I have a bit of an article here, and maybe you can kind of break it down for us a little bit further. And I'll read just a few snippets, and then I think you'll know kind of where I'm going with it. It says, in case everyone has forgotten, despite WrestleMania main events, many will enjoy. Vince McMahon and WWE are still getting tens of millions of dollars of blood money from Saudi Arabian regime that murders journalists and now has women's rights activists on trial who have been tortured physically and sexually. Numerous U.S. and U.K. sources reported just a few days ago that over a dozen women's rights activists were arrested late last May, just before the decades-long ban on women's driving was ended. According to UK newspaper The Guardian, those activists have been accused of undermining security and aiding and abetting enemies of the state. So there's obviously a lot more here, but you're one of those journalists who is not letting this story go away, and I think it's for a good reason. Because WWE, as a billion-dollar tradable commodity on the stock market, has to be held accountable, and there is a little word called ethics that everybody has to operate under in the world of business, and we know that more often than not, that is not happening. So, Bob, I'm curious, I guess the first question, based on what I read, is why do you feel inclined to write about these things, knowing that it's going to somewhat potentially alienate you from the WWE and other major promotions, just like our friend John Arezzi from about a month ago, where he started covering wrestling honestly and like a true journalist, and he was kind of blackballed from the pro wrestling community for a long time. Can you speak on that for us, please?
I think at the end, when you're talking about, we can argue, as you were a little bit ago, we can argue about how we think the whole Rousey, Lynch, Flair thing was booked. That's one thing. That's our, in the end, for all but the Vince McMahons, for the AEWs, for the Impacts, it's our entertainment. That we put that in one place, but there's a larger world out there. And in that larger world where McMahon's making the kind of money he's making from a government, that, I mean, there's no arguments, and it's about what the Saudi government's done. It's not even a matter of a partisan political issue anymore. Condemnation of WWE's involvement in that last show came from politicians as different as Senator Bob Menendez from my own state and Senator Lindsey Graham, who's usually known as the Trump ally. That was covered pretty heavily in major business publications, because in the kind of the post-kayfabe era, businesses and sports sites have been able to cover wrestling as as the art form it is, but also as the business it is, and they've been able to deal with those elements. What happens when Vince McMahon gets a whole bunch of money from Fox? What happens when they get a whole bunch of money when they re-sign with Comcast/USA? But what happens when you get potentially bigger amounts of money that might border on dwarfing that over a long period of time from the government of that practices the kind of things it does toward women. The fact that right now Sonya Deville couldn't even set foot in their country. Sonya Deville would be lucky if she got out alive. Okay, the way that gays and lesbians are treated is a whole another issue, which I talked about in part of the larger issue of how they deal with women. Now, we talked about the presumably main event of Mania. Is it just a coincidence that that's being made the main event when there's no women's event to, kind of provide the plausible deniability for a, for the next Saudi show, which, in that article in that blog I talked about. So those things are real. You've got to, this isn't Vince McMahon's little carny show anymore. This, as you said rightly, is a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar corporation. He's now on the Forbes list of billionaires. This isn't small stuff. It's a publicly owned company, and with being a public company comes a greater degree of accountability to the public, to the stockholders, to the broadcast partners that they have. I think it's perfectly legitimate to talk about. I think people that ignore it and just want to say, I just want to watch my show. Fine. For the people who don't want to, I'm not looking to be Dave Meltzer, I'm not looking to be Bob Ryder. I'm looking to be, as I once, when somebody gave me an introduction, B-Boy. Somebody with the old 3PW company. And this guy tried to make me out like I was Dave Meltzer. And I said, look, hopefully in the end, I'm a useful mark with a website who helps a wrestler to get paid and helps the show get talked about. But also, when I'm writing, deals with some of the real life issues. So you kind of have that duality. You're playing, hey, I'm the mark and I'm the fan. But you also, if you're writing, you have to talk about the serious stuff. And to not do that's doing a disservice to the real issues at hand.
Yeah, and you know what, Bob? I have to wholeheartedly agree with you. I know that those who have been listening to the Wrestle Talk podcast for any extended period of time know that, first and foremost, we like to have a good time and we love professional wrestling, but there are certain things that must be discussed. If you call yourself a true blue wrestling fan and enjoy the entertainment value, that's fine and well, but you have to take into account the level and the depth that these things go to. You may say, well, I don't care what's going on in Saudi Arabia. I don't care what the WWE is doing in the stock market, but ultimately your decision to watch and purchase their merchandise empowers them to do what they do. And if they're not being scrupulous, then why would you want to help fund an organization that's not scrupulous? So I can tell you, I've taken kind of a hesitant approach recently in not consuming the product, because I have to in order to run a professional wrestling podcast, right? Because they're the big dog. But as far as when it comes to buying merch and my subscription to the WWE Network, I seriously considered it, because guess what? I have 2 little girls at home. My cousin back there, he's got a little girl. So when I stop and think that these are people's little girls that are being held captive, okay, for speaking their opinion, something that here in America we have every single right and freedom to do so, is scary. And it makes me wonder how much more they value the almighty dollar over society, people, and just the well-being of the general population overall. I mean, it's got to make you wonder.
Well, I mean, it's funny.
It's got to make you wonder.
It's funny because on one side of her brain, Stephanie McMahon is a mother, and she has 3 daughters, and certainly on some level has to think about what kind of world am I leaving to my 3 daughters. I mean, she's human, as does Paul Levesque, is a father to those 3 daughters. There's a part of a certain, as absorbed as they are with WWE, they're still parents.
Correct.
And from all of anything that I've ever seen, they are very much parents. and loving parents to those kids, whatever you may think about the characters, the people, their business practices. So at one time, yes, I'm sure they would like to see you don't want the portrayal that WWE had for a lot of years, where basically it was a bunch of anorexic, silicone-enhanced Barbie dolls who were doing sometimes not much more than a glorified sex show on TV. Now, you want to sell sex, you want to sell sizzle as part of the athletics? Fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not, they were selling the sizzle and not the steak in terms of the way women were portrayed in ways that I can't imagine a Stephanie McMahon would want her daughters to be looking at, or pretty much anybody's daughters. And the larger sponsorship community didn't want that. So on one level, the whole women's revolution deal, in some small part of their brain, that's, I'm sure, a part of the consideration. The fact that there are women who are athletes in the wider world, also a part. But in the end, if you're going to do business with the Saudis, what better way for you to put a better public face forward than to have a women's main event at WrestleMania, and then a month or so after that is go pay a visit over to the Saudis and get your tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, and as we all know, they have money to throw away over there.
It helps that Becky Lynch, now going back into the world most of you, the people listening to enjoy, you happen to get lucky that one woman got ridiculously hot, and for once, Vince McMahon didn't get in her way.
Facts.
For once, he didn't get in the way. He let somebody organically get over, which, I mean, in days past of wrestling, that's how somebody got over. If the crowd got into the character, how they worked it, how they performed in the ring, that's how a guy or a woman got over. That's how they became more successful. That's how they got up higher on the card. That's how they earned more money, both for the promoter and themselves.
Well, you know what?
So,
I think we need to continue to see more of that, Bob. It'd be great to see more of that, because I mean, you can see it. I'm sure it just kind of goes along the same lines.
And it's one of the biggest single criticisms,
right,
that people have of WWE, and it's one of the things I think people hope for as All Elite Wrestling starts to come into being, is that you're going to see something that's a little more work rate based, a little more something where a man or a woman gets to go over organically. It's like, how skilled are you in the ring? How interesting is your character? How real is your character? That's what they want to see. They're seeing the work rate part when you see a New Japan able to have a relatively successful niche TV show with New Japan Friday nights. But now, are you going to be able to take the next step onto a product that shows some of that with a larger audience? And right now, the biggest criticism they have, whether or not they use those words, they're tired of it being strictly the circus. They want to see, they don't want Vince McMahon to tell you what you're going to like. As he's said, pretty much as long as he's run the company, he's like, I'll tell you what you like. Well, the fact that viewership is down, the fact that viewership, which isn't bad by current standards, just today, this report of the SmackDown viewership would have been dwarfed, 10 or 15 years ago by who would have been watching it. And you've got to ask yourself why.
Yeah, I think those are all legitimate questions. I mean, you do have to question it, Bob, and I think, and I apologize for interrupting, but I think it's only fair as we continue in this fanhood that we start to look at it all at all angles. And there's definitely a hint of hypocrite kind of in the way that they're operating, but that doesn't stop them. The machine is so big, it keeps cranking out superstars, it keeps cranking out pay-per-views. And for the foreseeable future, they're going to continue to be the big dog in the yard. Now, before I throw it over to my partner in crime over there, Nightmare Jones, I did want to ask you, because I saw on your page that you also were providing a little bit of coverage to a promotion that we're huge fans of here on the Wrestle Talk podcast, and that is WOW, Women of Wrestling. We were very, very pleased to have the opportunity to not only interview David McLean, we also spoke to Jeannie Buss. And you know what? They've got something really special going on over there, and we've been trying to communicate that to our listeners. From what you've seen, Bob, what are your thoughts overall? And do you think WOW, and I know they've been around longer than the TV show because that's only been on for a couple of weeks, but do you think they have any staying power, and are they bringing something different to the table?
I mean, certainly in having a women's only product, having talent like Tessa Blanchard on, you're providing an alternative. You provide people alternatives. That's why I want to see WOW. WOW is, and I'm going to say just for my personal taste, I see, like, I remember the previous incarnation a number of years ago. It still smacked a little too much of the kind of the glowy character thing for my personal taste.
Okay.
But but the improvement from those days, you're seeing a more athletic product with the women. You're not seeing quite as strictly a show. You're seeing the show. Yes, you're seeing the kind of fanciful characters, but once it gets down to being in the ring, you're seeing a good product. And that's the more options that are out there for people to see, it'll keep growing the wrestling business as a whole. You know, the Vince McMahons of the world seem to want to squash anything that's not theirs when they don't realize the more independents that are out there, the more TV options that are out there, interest people in wrestling overall. And so if Vince McMahon or Impact or anybody else had some sense, they'd be happy seeing somebody like WOW succeed. Even if it's a little bit different a product, the more eyeballs on the product means somebody some night decides to turn on, and if you're Vince McMahon, hey, maybe they'll take a look at our women and they'll make a comparison. If AEW is on and they see, okay, well, whatever night that their TV eventually does come on, and people get more into wrestling again. So it's then, hey, McMahon's on Monday night. Well, why don't we got nothing else on? Why don't we flip that over? They all, in the end, it's all going to be a positive thing for the business at large. And when the business at large prospers, I think, as you say, the big dog of the wrestling industry will prosper. Let's face it, back in the days when Vince McMahon was fighting tooth and nail with WWF, as it was in those days in WCW, the wrestling audience on television dwarfed what you're getting now. You ought to ask yourself why. Because you had two exciting, competitive program options that people could watch every week. Somebody could tape one and watch it later. People got more into the business as a whole. So whether that's a WOW, whether, as you mentioned, something, the smaller independents like a CZW, House of Glory, a PWG out in California that's more a niche product for a real, almost strictly work rate based product. All those options get, the more healthy that business is, the more it'll benefit, I think, of Vince McMahon. And I wish you could somehow put that in his head. He won't. Triple H and maybe Steph. Triple H more because I think he's more of a student of the art of wrestling art. I think he appreciates it more. He seems to have far more of a eye on seeing what independent wrestling offers and the necessity to keep it healthy.
Well, there's no doubt about it, and you can see it today.
I'm glad they're succeeding.
You can see it. You can see it today, Bob, with the likes of Ricochet and obviously Tommaso Ciampa. And we do wish him a very, very speedy recovery. Nightmare Jones, I want you to jump in here real quick, and I apologize again, Bob. Nightmare, I want you to jump in here real quick because I know you had a couple of questions and I didn't want to be rude and take them all up. Why don't you tell us what's on your mind and we'll go from there.
I do. Once again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us tonight, Bob. I guess that my first question is, with everything that's going on with AEW, you know, they signed Chris Jericho, they got Kenny Omega. Do you think that they're going to be a threat to the WWE like what WCW was, or do you think that?
I think that would take an awfully long time for that to happen. Let's let them be a successful product. Let's let them, whether the rumors that have kept floating around were one of the Turner channels or possibly Paramount Network, which used to be was the old Spike, which of course has a history of airing wrestling, including the WWE, and ECW in Spike's various incarnations. I think they would be an alternative to the people that maybe WWE turned off for the various reasons we were talking about earlier, whether it's the being involved in with regimes that I think a lot of people, no matter their politics, are really uncomfortable with. And it's funny because it seems clear that AEW almost seems to be taking somewhat, at least in a couple of areas, somewhat of a political stance in the sense of making a point of there being at least 2 openly gay talents that they've signed with Sonny Kiss and with Nyla Han. They also, of course, are doing the Fight for the Fallen, which is the second pay-per-view they're going to do, which with a chunk of the revenues going to victims of gun violence. Those are some pretty clear political stances. And that one I would hope that most people would have an issue with, but they're making a very clear stance. WWE has kind of timidly done that, and they're kind of doing a little bit more, I guess, in the coming season with the new season of Total Divas, where Sonya Deville and her partner are going to be depicted as very much a part of the show. So in a sense, they're kind of, whether they were pushed maybe a little bit by seeing how clear Cody Runnels and Khan and the Young Bucks and the rest with AEW are not even blinking. It's like, fine, if you aren't going to watch us because we have gay and lesbian talent, fine, that's your choice. We're not tippy-toeing around it. They're their talent. They're good talent. We're not shying away from that being a part of who they are. WWE doesn't ignore that fact, but they, until this starts coming out in this new season of Total Divas, you're really not going to have seen them push the issue, and I don't want to say feature the issue, but really more strongly acknowledge the fact of that Deville's gay. And I hate to say the word normalize because it implies that it needs it, but unfortunately for too many in this country, it does, is to see her with her partner. It's good in the sense wrestling has largely gotten away from a lot of the cheap heat of race, gay baiting, and so on. And even McMahon has really steered well away, allowing somebody, as high profile as Finn Balor to with a pro LGBT rights shirt with money donated to LGBT causes, and to have the group of folks come out at that last WrestleMania from the local gay and lesbian community. So, but I think if AEW is very clear about where they are, is unapologetic about who they are, they're going to offer themselves up as an alternative. to say that they are going to be an actual challenge to WWE, I think is wishful thinking on the part of some others. As was said earlier, WWE is the 900-pound gorilla in the wrestling industry, and it's going to be that for the any time in foreseeable future of any of us. That's not bad or good, it is. But having alternatives out there, having something that people who won't watch WWE can turn on and get interested in, as well as the other shows you mentioned, helps the business as a whole. And quite frankly, for those of us who tune in a certain number of hours a week, makes it more fun. In the end, as seriously as you cover these, if it stops being about being able to tune out from the reality of the world for that 2 hours, 3 hours, God knows how many hours with WrestleMania or whatever, or going to live shows. If you can't tune out and enjoy and get into that, what's the point? Because then you're not, then his business is not succeeding in its mission, which is we're trying to create a entertainment product that will entertain you, and hopefully you buy all our spin-off merchandise, but entertain you to the point that you're willing to spend money or put eyeballs on a product.
Absolutely. Very, very, very well said. I totally agree with you. I am excited for AEW because not that I think that it's going to be a competition, but it's because as a wrestling fan, I get to watch more professional wrestling. I watch just about every professional wrestler you can think of. I watch Raw, I watch Monday Night Raw, I used to watch TNA, but they don't have it on my
no, and that's an unfortunate problem that Impact has right now. Also a problem to a lesser degree that Ring of Honor has, in that the cable channel, the Sinclair-owned cable channel that they're on is not available on a lot of cable or satellite systems. The one that TNA that Impact is on even less. Ring of Honor at least has at least some degree of syndication, although even that's not as big and not in certain markets. Right now it's not in Philadelphia and hasn't been for a while. So until September. But yet they do TV tapings here.
That's crazy. That's the core of the fan base in Philly. That's nuts.
And they've got to find somebody who's willing to. You had a cable channel here who took their product and went to other infomercials. So I don't know if that's a matter. It wasn't ever clear of if it was Ring of Honor didn't want to pay what they were charging, or they could make more money running infomercials, which is what they're running during that slot now that Ring of Honor was airing. I mean, that's unfortunately where that business end of things on the other side kind of intrudes on our ability to have fun, is that you don't see it if there's not somebody there to put it out. And if you aren't producing something that the TV partner is interested in, they're not going to do that. See, Fight Network, it's part of the same, that little station that Impact is on is part of that same company that is owned by Fight Network, which owns, of course, Impact. So basically, they get to about the only people who they could get to televise it, is what it in reality unfortunately sounds like. And the sad thing is, they don't have a bad product, but for so many years, they did such fanciful, weird storylines, and in the end, when they came back to doing a more wrestling-based product, people got interested, but they didn't get interested fast enough. In the case of Impact, in the case of Ring of Honor, they have the problem that some of their talent is moving on. In the case of Ring of Honor, most recently, is that you've had a lot of them go to All Elite. and there has been I believe some effect on their house shows. There's no way of knowing what in terms of viewership, because they're kind of still a small fish. But you need to have people that are willing to feature that product that we all love to watch for a certain number of hours a week. And without them being able to produce a good product, somebody's not going to show it, which means we don't get to see it. So it's why producing an entertaining product is necessary. Everybody thought WCW would be around forever. And how quickly did that change? So, we always say about WWE, well, that's going to be the 900-pound gorilla forever. If the time comes where they stop producing an entertaining product, they can be dropped as quickly as WCW was. The difference is, obviously, it's owned by a family as opposed to a large corporate entity like WCW was. That's the one saving grace that WWE has. But in terms of the being available on this larger platform, they have got to keep in touch with what their viewership wants to see. And I think start working to expand that a great deal.
Very, very, very well said. Renee, why don't you jump in here with any final questions that you have with Mr. Bob McGee?
No doubt about it. Well, I guess kind of my final question was, Bob, I know that much like us, you're a huge advocate, not of just pro wrestling, but particularly independent wrestling. I know you reside for the most part over in New Jersey, so kind of Joe's neck of the woods because he's down in West Virginia. Can you tell the fans over the years that you've been covering pro wrestling, maybe what the difference is between going to a WWE show and going to an independent show, and maybe why, if they haven't already made an attempt to check out independent wrestling? Because I've always appreciated pro wrestling, but I didn't fall in love with it till I started going to independent shows. And I'm sure there's a lot of people just like me.
Because, I've been a fan of this, and I'll just say it right now, I'm 62 now. I've been a fan since I was 7 years old, when one day after my little kid, 7-year-old kid cartoons were on, I flipped on another one of the few channels that were on TV in those days, and here's the Sheik going bananas cutting a promo, and little 7-year-old me looks like, what is this? I've been hooked since those days. Fast forward to today. I've seen, obviously, a whole lot of wrestling. The most fun I think I have in a live experience is at an independent show. I think it's much more up close and personal. It doesn't feel as overproduced. It doesn't feel as overwhelming, I think, maybe just to some. And then, if you're going, let's say you're going to a WWE show let's say you went to Raw this past week. You're paying, $50, $60, $70 or more for a ticket. You're paying God knows how much if you're driving. You're paying God knows how much for parking. You're paying for concession food. The prices of any large arena. Now that's an awful lot of money to drop in one night. And your kids get home late and it's a weekday, or as most indies are on a weekend, you can go to the local high school. You can go, to a local hall. You can go to, as once upon a time happened in a certain little place in Philadelphia, you go to the bingo hall and see something where the characters, the performers are more approachable, and if they're talented enough, you can see them someday winding up on your TV show. I can't go through the number of names that I saw. I heard you mention Tommaso Ciampa, one of the whole laundry list of names. Hell, I saw Corey Graves when he was Sterling James Keenan appearing in any shows at the ECW arena before his injury, and where he had to pretty much go to commentary. I've seen you know, an awful lot of people I've been lucky enough to get to know a number of them. You don't get that when you're at a major promotions show. You only get that in an independent show. You feel a sense of, hey, I want to go. You don't get that same feeling of, hey, geez, I want to go tell my friend, come on along to WWE, because you figure they're big enough they can take care of themselves.
Right.
But you feel a different obligation if you went to an indie show and, hey, that entertained you. Yeah, they come back next month. Yeah, let me get my buddy from work. Let's see, he likes wrestling. Let's see if he'll come along. It's a very different feeling, almost a sense of participation in a way. It's like you feel that you want them to succeed. Most people with Vince McMahon, they kind of think like, Vince will take care of himself. But when you get the regional indie, and in the case of small indies who've gotten a little bit bigger, say PWX down in the Carolinas.
Good point.
I know they're doing
AEW in Chicago.
Weekend.
Yeah.
AEW, who does some tremendous shows there, and you can go through the list of. And here's another thing, and here's one of my pet loves, especially in the holidays. And one of the things I push to the point that somebody actually made a joke at one of the Toys for Tots shows at CZW, as I'm helping Kathy Fitzpatrick, the woman who runs the one that's been happening at CZW and a number of the ones in the Philly area. He says, I want your gimmick. And I said, my gimmick is nothing more than wanting to see these indie promotions that run shows in a neighborhood. I want to see them give back and give the communities a chance to give back to their greater communities. Vince McMahon does obviously a great deal of charity work, but you don't see people doing Toys for Tots, collecting blankets, doing food drives. You don't see a Vince McMahon doing that. You don't see him doing that at Monday Night Raw. Okay, they do that kind of from a top-down thing.
Right.
People aren't bringing canned food to a Monday Night Raw or a SmackDown taping.
Right.
You do especially during the holidays or on a special occasion, to those indies. So because they're so tied to the community, and because there's so much more an intimate experience, that's why I've always enjoyed them more, I think.
Well, you know what? I agree wholeheartedly. And as I said, kind of to preface my question, that's where I went from appreciating pro wrestling to loving it and making that connection. And fortunately, there are a lot of smaller promotions that are doing kind of canned food promotions. There's a lot of great folks over at the KWA that are doing that. And I'm sure that here where I am now in the St. Louis area, there are quite a few promotions doing the same thing, because I know community and content are king really in the world of sports entertainment / professional wrestling. And if you're not hitting that mark, well, you're missing it, because Bob McGee's been around this business for a long time, and he's been to a wrestling show or two. So if he's saying it, you pretty much can consider it the gospel. Well, Bob, listen, just out of respect to time, we want to do just one last thing with you before we let you go. Well, actually, two things. One, we want you to promise you'll be willing to come back on the show before 2019 is up.
Certainly, no problem at all.
Awesome, because I feel like we've just scratched the surface. And then number two, we want you to join us for a little bit of a therapeutic session. We like to call it the Wrestle Talk Podcast Shoot and Shout segment. We each get 30 to 45 seconds to just rant, rave, or talk about what's chapping our ass. It can be wrestling related or not. It's usually all in fun. And we want you to join us, considering today is your first time here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Would you do us the honor, Bob?
Okay, thank you. Now,
wait, though. Wait a minute. We do have music just to set the mood. So intern Timmy, hit the music, and let's go ahead and kick off tonight's edition of the Shoot and Shout segment.
It's just one of those days where you don't want to wake up. Everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you want to justify. Make someone's head off. You don't even make contact. And if you
now, if we're going to shoot, everybody liked the Ronda Rousey segment on Monday night, but how much better would all that setup have been if Charlotte Flair was being awarded the belt, and even better, do it on the night of the Ric Flair 70th birthday. Calls on Vince to award her the belt. Becky Lynch hits the ring, gets the disarmer on her, says, to Vince, I'm not letting go until you put me back in the match. Rousey storms out, says, you don't let me back in, I'm going to go home and make babies. And yeah, use those words on air. Lynch sinks it in. Charlotte does a nice expressive scream. All of a sudden, out comes Ric Flair crying the crocodile tears only he can cry, begging Vince to do anything to get the arm off his daughter. Vince relents. She lets go, only to say, and take us exactly to where we wound up. Fine, Becky, guess what? You get a play-in match. You get to wrestle Charlotte for the right to be in the main event of WrestleMania. How much more entertaining might that have been other than the segment that we got, which unfortunately also seemed determined to get Stephanie McMahon over as so much a big part of the angle. So that's sort of my pet peeve for this week.
Bob, I love that. That would have been way better than seeing 2 hours of build-up only to see Ric Flair get manhandled by Batista, which personally I'm not interested or buying any of that crap. Jonesy, why don't you go ahead and go next, and I'll close this out in tonight's edition of the Shoot and Shout segment, man.
Absolutely. My shoot and shout this week has to do not with professional wrestling, but with the weather. The weather, it seems to be nice, and you can go outside, and it seems nice, and the next thing you know, we get snow again. And then it's nice again, and then we get ice again, and it's just, Mother Nature needs to say, is it going to be hot? Is it going to be cold? I'm tired of the weather.
And you know what? Amen indeed. I'll go ahead and close it out with this. My shoot and shout today is for the youth of America. Teenagers from ages 13 to 17 or 18. What the hell is wrong with you? Okay? And here's why I say that. Guess what, guys? I had an emergency trip to Columbia, Missouri. Okay? My poor wife is struggling with a bunch of crazy people at work. Okay? And then guess what? I backed in to the back of a pickup truck this afternoon outside of Lowe's, and I was getting ready to lose my mind only to realize that just a few hours earlier, my truck got egged by a couple of teenagers who were arguing. Stop laughing, Stitch Nut. Got egged by a couple of teenagers that have been arguing with my daughter on social media. I am so mad, upset, and straight up disturbed at the fact that these teenagers have no respect. I got nothing to do with your social media beef with my daughter. What'd you say?
Put some respect on my name.
Put some respect on my name. I'm sick of these teenagers. If this is the future of America, dang it, I'm almost hoping I die young. I don't get what's wrong with the youth of America today. And one of these damn kids better come and clean these eggs off of my truck, because if not, I'm fixing to lose a couple of other patches of hair on the top of my already balding head. Not funny.
No.
Oh, gosh. Stop laughing back there. I'm sick of you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob McGee, one of the coolest and most passionate professional wrestling fans out there today. You guys can find him all over Facebook. He does an absolutely wonderful job of covering all aspects of it. All you got to do is type in PWBTS in your search bar. That's Pro Wrestling Between the Sheets. Bob McGee is dedicated to keeping you guys informed from all sides of the pro wrestling perspective. Bob, thank you so much for being here, man. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
And thank you very much for having me.
We'll talk to you soon again, brother. Grace and peace.
Take care. Have a great night.
Adios. Jonesy, what'd you think about Bob McGee, bro?
Man, the wrestling knowledge that he has, and he's not afraid to say something that is not the most popular opinion. That's the reason that I like him. That's awesome.
Bob McGee keeps it real. Well, guess what, Wrestle Talk podcast family? We have a special treat for you. during tonight's break. We're going to hit the Ricky Steamboat, but listen, we put something together ultra special for you guys who tune into the show every single week. I was feeling passionate. I was feeling excited. I love this show. I love the followers. I love everybody who's helped make it happen, including my wife and children and every single member of the Wrestle Talk podcast family. So I was sitting in front of my desk the other day. I turned on the microphone, put on one of my favorite beats of all time, and what you're about to hear came out. We're going to release it on social media over the next coming days. But you guys who are tuning in live, please make sure you guys share. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up in the heart if you're on the Facebook Live. And if you're listening to the replay, please comment, rate, share. If you're on iTunes, leave us a review. Anything you can do for the Wrestle Talk podcast, we greatly appreciate it. And remember, we got these bomb mugs for sale. We put your name on it, total of $20, including the Wrestle Talk logo. But anyway, that love, that passion for the Wrestle Talk family is what fueled what you guys are about to hear. And we are dubbing it the first ever Wrestle Talk podcast freestyle. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a minute and 30 seconds with the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling promotion.
Yo, what up? Night Owl. Nightmare Jones. What up, Wrestle Talk fam? Do it for y'all. Check me out. Kick in the door, waving the 4-4. Even them haters can't hate us no more. To unlock your door, cause we got some more. Every Wednesday we here, keeping it raw. Night Owl, Nightmare Jones, and all the best chest. Like a double barrel pointed right at your chest. Wrestle Talk Podcast.com. Smashing and killing it like the night of the prom.
You.
Hey, wrestling fans, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat talking at you, and you're listening to the Wrestle Talk Podcast.
Woo! Man, that was a quick minute and 30 seconds. Let me tell you something. But that freestyle was absolutely awesome. I must admit, that freestyle was pretty sweet. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for one of my favorite segments, the FWWC segment, where you get to hear from some of the craziness that's going on in the FWWC, whether it's Nightmare James beating up Bishop once again, whether it's Drop Familiar being kind of divided. Some people are for the Night Out, some people are backing up El Mata, whether it's Snaggletooth, Battle Cat, whether it's One Tooth, Big T, Funky Flex. It's all craziness in the FWWC. And if you wonder what the FWWC is, it's fantasy wrestling. You got fantasy football, baseball, basketball, everything you think of, but now you have fantasy wrestling. We cut promos, we have matches for championship belts, and it's a lot of fun. If you want to check it out, all you got to do is go to the WrestleTalkPodcast.com, go to the FWWC tab, click on that, and it'll get you set up, and you can join in the fun and cut your promos and everything else. Just stay out of Nightmare Jones' way, because you end up getting hurt if you get Nightmare Jones' way.
Oh, geez, Louise. You know what? Nightmare Jones, I know you have contractually been able to finagle your way into this segment, but can we please have a little bit of respect for some of the other callers? I mean, it's like you're cutting people off and disconnecting their phone calls every single week. Can we at least show a little bit of decorum, please?
I don't know what you are talking about. I always am very respectful when I do this segment. So let's go and continue. I'm always respectful. What are you talking about?
Well, you know what? We're going to see about that as we go ahead and bring on our first caller tonight. I know we've got about 16 people or so on hold. We're going to do our best to get through you guys as we anticipate our second featured guest of the evening, and that is author John Cosper. I'm very, very excited to talk to him once again. He's a current and very loyal member of the Wrestle Talk family, but we won't be there for just a few minutes. So let's go ahead and get into these crazy people from the Fantasy Wrestling Worldwide chapter. Who do we got on the line?
Well, I guess that we should go from the top of the list, and that is the Bishop. I mean, what can I say? You know, Bishop, you faced me on Monday, and you know, things went exactly the way that I said it was, and it seems that, you know, now it's going to be me and you at Fastlane for the Intercontinental Championship, because Big Papa Cook has already cashed in his title, so it's me and you still.
Well, you know what, Nightmare Jones? Yes, you did beat me this past Monday night. But you got to remember this, Nightmare. See, I got beat, but you got just as bad of a beating as I did this past Monday night. So, yes, you did beat me, but see, this coming Sunday night is a different story, because I plan on walking out with the Intercontinental title. And I'm not going to let you or anybody else stand in my way. Laugh now, but you'll be crying later.
The confidence. The confidence.
Yeah.
I've already beaten you twice, and you still want more. I don't know if you're just stubborn or if you're just stupid. I don't know. I'm done talking.
Wait a minute. Nightmare Jones, I'm not going to stand for you. Wait a minute, Bishop, if you would allow me. I'm not going to stand for you, Nightmare Jones, insulting or see, the first hour of the show, you're cool, you're great, you do a great job with the people that we bring on the show, but as soon as the fantasy wrestling thing starts, you always turn into a big jerk. Let me remind you something, Nightmare Jones. You know what? LeBron James lost his first 2 NBA finals. Let me remind you that Michael Jordan was cut from his basketball team his sophomore year. And guess what? Both of those guys achieved greatness, and they've all been champions many times over. So the fact that you're discounting Devontae D.
You know what, Nightmare? I don't mean
Really?
to cut you off. You know,
Wow.
You can let Nightmare Jones have his fun. Let him have his fun. Let me tell you something, you little sawed-off Oompa Loompa.
Oh!
This coming Sunday night, you're going to find out just why the Bishop is going to go ballistic. And I dare you to try to stop me from becoming the Intercontinental Champion. Bring your barbed wire, bring your bat, bring your thumbtacks, and I'll bring Blair.
Woo!
You know all about Blair, don't you?
He don't want to.
You know all about Blair. Blair once kissed you and busted you upside the head, and so she just might make another appearance.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, Devontae D, the Bishop, is ready to put the past behind him and introduce Nightmare Jones to one of his little friends. You get me? You cockroach, you can say hello to my little friend. You know what I'm talking about? Well, listen, guys, as excited as we were to talk to the Bishop, we have a few more callers on the line before we bring on John Cosper. But guess what? As I'm sitting here looking at my tablet, I actually just got a notification, so I'm guessing it is time for a little bit of It's time for a little bit of breaking news here tonight on the Wrestle Talk Podcast, episode 236, with the Night Owl and Nightmare Jones. And that little bit of news concerns the Intercontinental Championship here in the FWWC. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit earlier, it was announced that Big Papa Kurt, one of the few and true legends, a man that doesn't have to call himself a legend all the time, Nightmare Jones, is actually cashing in his Intercontinental Championship for an opportunity to face the Battle Cat for the Universal Championship. We're talking about Big Papa Kurt, a.k.a. Jimbo Slice, against the Triple Champion and the four-time Universal Champion, the man that resides in the jungle, the Battle Cat. I am very, very excited to see how this plays out, and I'm glad that the powers that be decided to break the news right here on tonight's edition of the Wrestle Talk Podcast. So do me a favor, intern Timmy. Why don't we go ahead and what now, Jonesy? What now?
If I will, I would like to say this is that we all know that the only reason why Big Papa Cook cashed in his Intercontinental Championship was because he knew that he was already going to lose it to Nightmare Jones. So therefore, in order to save his body and not have to go through the pain and the torture, he decided to just give up that title. So he's not even going to be involved in the match. So, you know, that's
Well, you know what?
That's all I'm trying.
Nightmare, you guys clearly, you La Familia needs to get their house in order. I'm telling you right now. Ever since Mata decided to disappear off the face of the earth, you guys seem to be a house of cards, and it is crumbling very, very quickly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're only about 5 minutes away from John Cosper, our final featured interview of the evening, but we definitely do want to get to a few more callers. So, ladies and gentlemen, intern Timmy is telling me that we actually have a man that made a major announcement in the group just a little bit ago, I should say a day or so ago, a man who is one of the very few ever Triple Count champions and a guy that's been with the FWWC pretty much since the very beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and a pleasure to welcome in none other than our friend Kronos, the Titan of Time.
Well, you know, I can't get over that announcement, man. I can't get over that introduction either. Good evening, fellas. I hope everything is well with you all.
It is, sir. It is. What's up, man? What's on your mind tonight?
Well, you know, I always live up to my word. I always say if I'm going to commit, I commit all the way. So I wanted to make sure I showed my support on the 252. Is that what you said?
236. 236.
236. All right, well, I'll be here for the 262nd as well.
My man.
I would say that was one of the toughest announcements that I could have made. I went back to it several times over. I was like, hey, this is an 8-minute long video. I was like, but I can't cut out me actually being honest to everyone. And for those that have left in the past and those that have come back, those that have left and those that have come back, I need you to do one thing for me. Do it right. If you're going to leave on a high note. If you're going to be in this, I need you to commit and be there present in the moment. I understand what's going on in people's private lives, but if you want to do something, do it to the best of your ability. Period.
Well, you know what, Kronos? All I can say, man, is thank you for your many contributions. You know, no matter who we've had on the show, if it's like tonight where we've got Bob McGee and John Cosper, two absolutely talented and wonderful guests, or when it was way back in the day where we couldn't get anybody to call into the show and participate, there was always a few constants, and one of those constants was Kronos, the Titan of Time, and the fact that you continue to this day, after over 4 years of being on the air, to support the Wrestle Talk podcast and the FWWC, dude. It's absolutely fantastic. So I'll go ahead and let Nightmare Jones get any parting shots that he wants to shoot here before we let you go and get to our last caller during this segment.
Well, what can I tell you about Kronos, the Titan of Time? This is a gentleman that I have had multiple feuds with, a gentleman that Nightmare Jones seemed it couldn't beat. Like, you were my kryptonite. Every time we faced each other, it seemed that you would always come out on top. And I'll never forget my first opportunity going for the Intercontinental Championship, and I lost it to the Kronos, the Titan of Time, at my first ever Universe Mania 2. I'll never forget that night.
And, you know, I can safely say that night was epic. Being there, having the horsemen in the background, having done what we've done, and I can safely say that it probably won't be nearly as epic as this year's Universe Mania 5. So if you're planning on coming to Kansas City area, let me know, because I'm going to be here, of course, because I live here. But we're going to get together and we're going to kick it like Kansas City style. And that's always top notch.
We're all going to get together and watch El Mata destroy the Night Owl. So absolutely. Send everybody. Yeah.
You know what? Enough of that. Enough of that. Ladies and gentlemen, help us make some noise. Not that kind of noise, but help us make some noise once again for Kronos, the Titan of Time. Kronos, man, thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart, man. This is Renee talking. Dude, you have been a great friend. You've done me many favors. I've done you many favors. And truthfully, bro, anytime we get a chance to spend time together, whether it be here on the show or in person, it's always a wonderful experience. So, man, I hope that we can continue to keep that line of communication. And as always, whenever you're ready to come back to the world's premier fantasy wrestling promotion, the door is always wide open for a true legend, Nightmare Jones, not just guys that call themselves legends, for a true legend, former Triple Crown champion, Kronos, the Titan of Time. Well, listen, Jonesy, John Cosper is 100% ready to go. He's in the bullpen. He's ready to throw some strikes. But we do have to make just about 30 seconds for our last caller tonight. And I hear he's quite angry and ready to deliver this message. So it really shouldn't take him any more than 30 seconds. We're going to go ahead and take a cruise over to one of the most historic neighborhoods in Kansas City, well known for its Italian heritage. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show once again, Big T, the Paisan of Columbus Park.
Night Owl, what's going on, brother?
Cooler than the other side of the pillow. What's up with you, Big T?
Hey, listen, ain't nobody seen Big T in a few weeks, but let me tell you something. Big T is back. Night Owl, you being a family man, you understand home comes first, right?
Of course.
So Big T had to return to Columbus Park and handle a few things. But listen, come tomorrow night, Big T's heading back out on the road, and I'll see y'all at Fastlane.
Boom. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? In 28 seconds, Big T says all that has to be said. A former Universal Champion here in the FWWC. Trust me, guys, if you have been wondering where Big T is at, I'm guessing that all he's been doing is sharpening up the machete, and he's going to come back ready to slice some heads. All right, well, you know what, folks? It is about that time that we transition away from the world's greatest fantasy wrestling promotion to our second featured guest of the evening. We've all been very, very excited to have John join us back on the show, especially because he's got some pretty interesting new things going on, as well as some of the books that we know and love that we actually personally have on our shelves, because you know what? John sent us some. Okay, so I'm very, very excited. I want to thank everybody who called in for the FWWC. For those of you who weren't able to get on, just remember tomorrow night, Thursday night, the FWWC tonight, hosted by Curtis Black and Marcus Mayhem, available at WrestleTalkPodcast.com. So, ladies and gentlemen, we got some music. It is time once again to welcome in our boy, John Cosper.
Good afternoon, sunny SoCal. This is J.O. coming to you.
Take over your station to give you some gems that the exec just won't give any play.
Hit it.
So check them out.
Come on, I got some instruments there.
Get it.
Yeah, I just say real kitty, loud color change, body marked up like a beast. I don't push a Maserati, Beamer, biz a pity. Yeah, I wrote a foreign, and I'm looking 50. Hey, go ahead and doubt it.
Hey, John, welcome back, man.
Amazing song. Thank you so for coming on to the show. You are amazing. How's it going, John?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Good, good. So what has been new with Mr. John Cosper?
Hey, since the first of the year, I've actually got 2 new books out, and they kind of span the gamut of wrestling history. The first one actually is something I partnered up with. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Bomb Shelter. They are the faction based out of the Midwest here of Joseph Schwartz, Randy West, and Zodiac. Combined, they've got just decades of experience in pro wrestling. Randy's the toughest broad in wrestling. Zodiac is the monster, and Joseph is the time bandit, the time traveler. And he actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, we'd love to start telling our stories. Would you want to partner up with us?" So we put together, actually, it's a young adult novel called Bomb Shelter, a scattered timeline. It's just a story about the 3 of them and their adventures in traveling through time. And actually, this first book has quite a few cameos, a large number of pro wrestlers people would know, folks like Rich Swann, Madman Pondo. There's a young guy out of the Midwest here named Corey Storm, and the Hooligans and Thunder Kitty. It was a real fun little project to put together, and we got that one out back in January. And then the one that just came out last Friday hit Amazon, and today they hit my doorstep, the original Black Panther, The Life and Legacy of Jim Mitchell, first true African-American superstar in pro wrestling, who started his career all the way back in 1930. And it's a project I've been working on for 5 years. Really proud of it, and really, really excited to finally get this out in the hands of people where they can learn about this guy and discover some amazing history that's never been told before.
Amazing.
That's amazing. Made you want to write a book about the original Black Panther? Like, why did you choose that person to write this book about?
I discovered him when I was working on my first book, which is Bluegrass Brawlers, the story of professional wrestling in Louisville. It was a name that jumped out at me because he was a Louisville native, and I believe it was a match that he had when he returned to Louisville. One of his very few appearances in his hometown in the early 40s. He would work with Jack Claiborne and Celia Samara when he came into town. And it was a name that interested me, and I wanted to know more about. And the big story that I discovered about him was the story of a riot that happened after a match between him and Gorgeous George at the Olympic Auditorium in 1949. What happened basically was George had thrown Jim Mitchell out of the ring, kept kicking him, wouldn't let him back in the ring. So a fan climbed in the ring and went after George and took a shot at him. George turned around and decked the fan, and then the fans fought for the next several hours into the wee hours of the morning. What's really, really cool about this whole story is, I've been researching him for years and posting stories on my blog, and almost 2 years ago now, had a guy contact me and say, "Hey, my friend used to flip houses in Toledo. He bought Jim Mitchell's house and found all of his stuff. You've got to talk to him." So when I went up to Toledo and met this guy, Dave Marciniak, and started going through things, and really what we did, we spent about a year kind of cataloging everything. I scanned every document, every program, every letter and stuff. Wow. We sold quite a bit of it to help him out since he's now retired, and then I ended up buying quite a chunk of it myself. But 2 of the first things I found within the first 10 minutes, and I set aside, I've got the program from the 1949 match between him and Gorgeous George when the riot happened.
Wow.
And I've got a letter from the California Athletic Commission ordering Mitchell to explain his part in inciting that riot. I set those 2 things aside. I said, "Hey,
when kayfabe was alive and well, 1930.
Exactly. So there was so many cool things. We actually found a ledger book too that Jim Cornette snatched that up and bought that right away. But it actually includes,
that 1949 is one of the years that's recorded in that logbook. And you go to that month, and you know, we got this all in the book, but you know, you go to that specific month, and it'll tell you exactly how much money he made that night wrestling Gorgeous George in the main event.
Wow.
Which I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $249, which is a couple $1,000 in today's money. And then what's real funny there is at the bottom of the page, of course, he lists, you know, what he made each day, what his lodging expenses were, food expenses. He has incidentals. You can see when he bought new tights or when he bought new boots or, you know, any other things he might need. Massages is another thing that was kind of a regular thing for him. But at the bottom of August 1949, you see, you know, New York wrestling license application, New Jersey wrestling license application. Wow. And the very next month, he got shipped out to New York, New Jersey for a couple of months until the heat cooled down in California. It was just amazing to go through these things and to get some real insight as to who this guy was and where he had been, and you know, and reading letters that people had sent to him, and you know, finding his passport from his trip to Australia in the early 1950s, and just amazing history. A lot of this stuff is in the book. There's probably over 100 images of letters and documents, and I mean, the guy had his immunization records from when he went traveling. I've got a copy of his handgun owner's license.
Wow, dude.
Just really neat stuff. And what was really cool, 3 months ago, when I was getting ready to take the book to press and everything, they had a big convention here in Louisville, and I went over and was talking with Jim Cornette. He walks me around the corner, introduces me to Mark Henry, and says, "Mark, this guy's got a story to tell you." I had brought my notebook of all my Jim Mitchell stuff, and I bought a pair of the boots and everything, and sat down and talked to him for a couple hours. And Mark Henry agreed to write the foreword for the book, which is absolutely sensational. He put the book over so wonderfully. So it was really cool to work with a WWE Hall of Famer and a guy who really, you know, can trace it, you know, African American history in pro wrestling really got kickstarted by guys like him and Jack Claiborne and Felix Amaro way back in the 1930s.
Well, you know what, John? I think it's phenomenal, and I think the timing is impeccable. I mean, considering we're just coming off Black History Month, you were able to gather and do the work required to tell a full story about Jim Mitchell that dates back, like you said, to the 1930s, and it's pretty freaking cool, man. I got Bluegrass Brawlers. I cracked it open, read a few pages, and let me tell you something, man. You got me hooked, and I want to thank you personally for sending that to us. And I also want to thank, obviously, our boy Luke Roberts for facilitating that as well, who helps us make these connections in many shapes, forms, and fashions. But truthfully, man, I know that there's one of the things that you've written that has particularly almost seemed relevant more than anything else recently. And we've seen people talking about and tweeting about and writing about David Schultz quite a bit recently. But if anybody has written about David Schultz to the highest level and the highest standard, it is you. I want to ask you this, dating back to the incident with the interview and even before that, how big do you think that is today, and how do you correlate it to kind of what's happening today? We're almost exiting a certain era of professional wrestling and going into this reality era once again that I guess they were trying to claim a few years ago. But Dr. D was one of those guys that just did not stand for the disrespect of pro wrestling, and we're seeing kind of that happening again in today's date. So I'm curious, man, when you think about everything that you wrote and you think about how things are going today, do you correlate the two, and what do you think about it?
I think that is an interesting correlation, and it's neat to watch the wrestlers that are learning how to use social media and really, you know, really extend what they do in the ring, and even on the local scene here. There's a young lady training, you know, 15 minutes away from where I live at the arena at Jeffersonville, Indiana, named Billy Starks. You may not know her name now. You're going to know her name in a couple of years. She's actually still in high school. We've had a couple of high school standouts in Indiana, actually. There's Alice Radley in Indianapolis is training with Randy West, and there's also I mentioned Corey Storm a moment ago, turns 18 just here in a couple months. But Billy recently had a feud with another guy in the Soul Federation she's working with in Jeffersonville. He had won the award for Best Wrestler of the Year last year for, it's called Grindhouse Academy. Too Tough Tony and Rudy Switchblade run the place.
Oh, wow.
And she stole the award, took it to school and spent, a whole day on Facebook posting pictures of his award everywhere. And it was just, I was like, this is a, 14, 15-year-old kid who gets it, that people on TV don't get it, and how you can, translate it and live it out and make it real. And, it's what, it's really old school. It does fit in with that reality era, type thing you're talking about. There's a word for multi-platform type media. It's escaping me right off the top of my head, but I mean, that's really, I love to see more people doing that. I think at the smaller level as well as the bigger level, where, you're carrying what goes on TV over onto social media and other platforms. And, really making it an immersive thing once again, and making it something that people feel really, big and passionate about. As far as Dr. D, I mean, my gosh, the man was ahead of his time, and even though the two of them never met and never even spoke a word to each other until, Dr. D appeared on his podcast last year. I mean, he was, the first coming of Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was just a dangerous redneck, didn't give a crap, didn't care what people said. He was a heel through and through. He was one of the meanest, nastiest, and most hated men in the business. He was absolutely as tough as they come. When you look at the list of guys that he worked with in the ring, and, especially, he had a run after WWF that was just ridiculous. I mean, we're talking, Bruiser Brody, Stan Hansen, Abdullah the Butcher, Ric Flair, Johnny Rods, Iron Sheik, just the toughest men in the business in that particular era. But what happened there, backstage that night, I mean, like you said, it was not tolerating disrespect for the business. And more than that, it was what he had been taught from day one by Herb Welch, which is, this business is your bread and butter. Kayfabe is the rule. We protect the business. You're protecting it for yourself. You're protecting it for your wife and daughter at home who are depending on you to bring home a paycheck. You're protecting for every guy in the back, And he did what, you would hope any other guy in that, locker room would have done if they were the one put in that position. It just happened to be David that night. Was it a setup, and was Vince looking for an excuse to get rid of him anyway? Yeah, probably. But he did what he was trained to do, and he did what he was told to do. He blasted him, he let him have it. Again, it was like, you're coming in here to disrespect my business. You're trying to ruin this for me, for my family, from everybody else in this locker room. I'm going to let you have it. I'm going to teach you a lesson. So.
Well, you know what? It's so funny as I hear you talk, John. The perspective you have is pretty incredible, and obviously comes from many, many years of experience and being around and covering the business. I just think of, the whole thing, and I'm sure you follow, the current product with Bautista attacking Ric Flair, and then on Monday, Triple H comes out and does his best to create this illusion that he's really, really upset with Bautista, and you could see him trying so hard to make sure that everybody believes what he's saying and really buys into the fact that he's really, really upset with Dave Bautista. But at the same time, 20 years ago, he was the same guy hitting the too sweet inside the cage with Diesel, Razor, and Shawn Michaels. So wrestling is just that kind of animal, isn't it? I mean, it's just kind of crazy how things come full circle.
It really is. And, another thing happened here last week is Impact Wrestling ran a show on Saturday night in conjunction with OVW. OVE, Jake and Dave Crist and Sami Callihan came and invaded OVW 2 weeks ago during their TV taping. And then last week, not only they come in and invade, Sami Callihan steals the title belt from Tony Gunn, puts up photos on Twitter and says, I'm holding it for $10,000 ransom. Again, taking what's going on in the ring and taking this show that was already sold out. Not like they're going to sell you other tickets. But, I mean, Sami Callihan, look at that guy over the past year, and, what happened with Eddie Edwards.
He's a beast.
He took that ball and he ran with it.
He's a beast.
And he has played kayfabe. He kayfabe Chris Jericho in his podcast about it. I mean, he totally, at the end of the interview, he just throws the mic down and storms off on Chris Jericho. The man's money, and he's one of the reasons why I've become, every Friday night, I take Friday night off from writing, and 10 o'clock, I'm watching Impact on Twitch. I'm watching for him. I'm watching for the Chris brothers. I'm watching for the Wrestle with Jordan Grace. And guy I just saw last night, got to shake his hand and say congratulations. Ace Austin's heading there. And if there's any Impact fans listening, you don't know Ace Austin is you're going to love this guy. He is incredible and just another phenomenal talent coming out of Dayton, Ohio.
Well, you know what? It's so funny that you say that, and Joe, I don't want to let you jump back in here before we run out of time. But I was getting harassed a lot, John, and I'm sure you'll find this to be something that you can relate to. A buddy of mine named Joseph Sykes, who's a great friend, was like, dude, what the hell? I'm pissed. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, bro, you've got to come with me to the Wrestling Revolver in Iowa. You've got to come. Sammy Callahan, Johnny Impact, Tessa Blanchard, which we were talking to Bob McGee earlier about WOW and kind of what they're doing over there. LAX, being a Latino, and of course Sammy and OVE. But I was like, dude, what do you want me to do? I'm going to go meet Adam Cole, Harley Race, and Nick Aldis at World League. So, like, it's so cool to, like, be harassed by my friend Joe, I guess, and be told, oh, shame on you for not coming, but it's all good because I'm going, 300 miles down the road to something that's just as cool and incredible. And guess what? There's room for all of it, John. And I know that's something that you kind of live by. Yeah, you cover the old school. You talk about the old school guys, and you bring some of these stories that people need to hear to light, but you still love wrestling today. And we're talking about OVE, and we were talking about Jim Mitchell, like 5 minutes ago. It's incredible that you still have that passion, even though you cover the old school. And, of course, there's a lot of things missing that a lot of people would love to see once again versus what we are seeing now. But I think there's room for all of it. You know what I mean? And it's like a beautiful thing, and that's kind of what Wrestle Talk's all about. We talk about the local backyarders. We talk about, the mid-range indies and the bigger indies and all the way through even back to the classics. And I think people need to be a little bit more open-minded, not be so obsessed with what they love, and just appreciate wrestling for what it is, because it comes in so many different shapes and sizes and flavors and colors that if you open up your heart to it, I think you'll fall in love with it like all three of us. Right, Joe?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree more. Let me jump in here with just a couple more questions before we do the Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. Recently, just Monday night, we lost a man that I used to watch when I was younger. That's King Kong Bundy. I want to know about what your thoughts about King Kong Bundy, because I know that you're an old school wrestling fan. So I know you know who King Kong Bundy is.
We all do, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was right at the time that I recall really getting into to watching it on a regular basis. It was the build up to WrestleMania 2. So, one of my first impressions of King Kong Bundy, I hated him. He was the bad guy, and I just knew Hulk Hogan was going to beat him. So, but Bundy was a phenomenon. He was one of those guys who just had the rare gift, a certain look, and at another time he would have been another one of the Angels back in the 50s, along with Tor Johnson and Maurice Soleil. But I mean, he was a beast. He was a draw, and it's sad that he went from that one year being the main event to the following year being in this match with Hillbilly Jim and the Midgets. And he made a bad decision as far as splashing on him at the time. But I mean, Bundy was tremendous. And actually, a guy I'm working with right now, and I don't want to drop names just yet, but when it happened, he called and dropped the story on my voicemail and said, hey, we got to get this in there about the time that I met Bundy before WrestleMania 2. So, I mean, he's certainly a guy everybody's got memories of. He was a guy you love to hate. I remember, too, him popping up as a cameo as a Bundy on Married with Children, which I thought was a lot of fun.
So cool. So cool.
Absolutely. My first experience that I ever had with King Kong Bundy was actually, it was my first ever independent show I went to at a local bar in Martinsburg called the Cadillac Club. And I was just a little guy, and I walk in there, and there's King Kong Bundy, and he's big as you could ever imagine. And I was so afraid I wouldn't go up to him to get his autograph, and I took his picture. I was as far away as I possibly could be from him.
I would have been the same way, I'm sure.
He was one of the nicest guys that you're ever going to meet. But so I never got the opportunity to see him again, and I tried multiple times to get him to come on to the podcast, but it just never worked out. I guess my second question is, you've written, a lot of books about professional wrestling. Is there any professional wrestler that you haven't written a book about that you would like to write a book about?
Oh gosh, I tell you, I wouldn't make a lot of money off of it, but I would love to be able to tell the full story of Elvira Snodgrass one day. She's kind of the forgotten lady from that old Billy Wolf, Mildred Burke era. I've got a number of great stories up on the website. She actually lost an arm in a car accident. Actually, the story is she rolled her car into a ditch and had her arm pinned between the door and the ditch and cut her own arm off to get out of the car.
Oh my God!
What the hell?
People talk about who's the toughest woman in pro wrestling, and they go, "Oh, it's Mae Young." It's Mae Young. No. And I'm sorry, Mae Young, you did not pin Elvira Snodgrass on her first day, because there's no way you walked in your first day and pinned a woman so tough she cut her own arm off to get out of the car.
They don't make them like that anymore, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I've started research on a guy named Wee Willie Davis, too, who was another real tough heel and a guy who worked all over the place. Actually worked as the masked Black Panther in California for a while. Became a movie star. He became a promoter in Louisville. Was a game show contestant and was an inventor. And just kind of a real interesting story. He's a guy that I'm actually working on right now to tell his story. And I've got 2 autobiographies that I am working on right now. One's probably about halfway done. The other one I'm just kind of getting started on. And again, not ready to announce any names, but both of them are names of people who are wrestling fans in the 80s and 90s. One of them you'll know, the other one you won't know, but he is a guy who has influenced the way you enjoyed wrestling from the early days of WrestleMania all the way through the 90s. And when you find out who he is and what he did, you'll understand what I mean. But he was a big part of how we've come to enjoy wrestling even today.
Absolutely. All right, well, Renee, why don't you go ahead and take it with any final questions that you have?
Well, you know what, Joe, I'm all out of questions, at least for this time around with John. But I will tell you, John, I'm very excited to be able to really get in, to the Bluegrass Brawlers. I would hope that someday down the road, somebody would do the same for Kansas City, which is where I live. I know, Joe, you're out in West Virginia, but I think there's a lot of dug up history in my region between St. Louis, which right now I kind of sit between both. I'm in Columbia, Missouri, which is kind of almost right between Kansas City and St. Louis. So I hope someday that a guy just much like yourself comes along and is able to tell the story of pro wrestling here in the Midwest. And hey, you know what? Maybe one day that'll be yours truly. But I'll tell you what, if I ever give credit to anybody as an inspiration for writing something like that, if I ever decide to do it, I know you're going to be one of those guys. And so much like, Mark Henry wrote the forward for the book that you wrote, I think it would be really cool if we ever got to a point where we put a book like that together and good old John Cosper could do us a favor and write the forward for ours to document the rich history of pro wrestling here in the Midwest, because I think it is long, long overdue. So that said, John, we got a few minutes left. We know you're a competitive guy, man. Would you join us once again in tonight's edition of the Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge?
I'll do my best. Absolutely. Let's go for it.
And let me say for the record, Jonesy, I know you're getting ready to kick this thing off. Bro, you're putting me up against a wrestling historian. So if this trivia challenge was about tacos, if this was about tacos, I guarantee you I would be the favorite to win. But what?
Hey, we would win, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But you know what? I feel like I'm at a disadvantage, but I don't ever back down, baby. I'm in La Familia. I'm in the buffet club, and I ain't scared of nobody. So hit the music, intern Timmy. Let's get it on, baby.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's installment of the world famous Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. Tonight's contest is scheduled for the best 2 out of 3 falls. Our contestants are the Night Owl, Renee Martinez, and John Cosper. In a few moments, I will ask you 3 questions about a particular professional wrestling topic. Whenever you think you know the answer to the question, all you have to do is shout out your answers. The first person to win 2 balls will win tonight's game show challenge. So in honor of tonight's guest, tonight's Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge is titled Work of Art. In a moment, I will give clues about 3 professional wrestlers who are known for wearing face paint. When you think you know who I'm talking about, just shout out your answer. The first person to win 2 balls will win tonight's contest. So it's pretty simple. I'll give you a couple clues. You shout out your answers. Whoever gets the correct answer gets the point. First person to get 2 points wins the Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. Are you gentlemen ready?
Ready.
Let's get it on.
Right now? All right. Here you go. Question number 1. This former WWE competitor has been one of the most talked about professional names in recent memory. A former 6-time tag team and 2-time Intercontinental Champion, he has held championships in Global Force Wrestling, the NWA, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Ring of Honor. At one time, he wore face paint as part of a tag team with Goldust.
Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes.
Oh, Cody Rhodes.
Thank you. I'll take
Cody Rhodes is correct. I heard the Night Owl first. So the Night Owl has 1 point. John Cosper is still not on the board yet, but it's okay because it was question number 2. All right, this former WWF tag team was successful, winning the WWF Tag Team Championships on 3 occasions. At one time, they were managed by Handsome Johnny V and Mr. Fuji, often considered a rip-off. Demolition is correct.
Dang it.
John Cosper has 1 point. The Night Owl has 1 point. We go to sudden death. This is
quick story. Hey guys, quick, super mega quick story. So at Metro Pro Wrestling, like 3 years ago, one of the guys that used to be a former writer of the WWE, Chris Goff, was running a promotion here locally called Metro Pro Wrestling. Demolition came in, and I'll be honest, because I'm still fairly new at this, I had no idea who they were. I thought they were, you know, an Animal and Hawk ripoff, which I think you were going to get to that in one of your clues. I so thoroughly enjoyed watching this man work that I became a fan. And these guys are probably in their late 50s, early 60s, somewhere in there. And they were just so good at interacting with the fans and getting people going. Their physical limitations became a non-topic. So for those of you guys that have never taken the time to research or gone out and watched Demolition, do yourself a favor and find out when they're coming to your area, because after all these years, they continue to kick ass and take names. Shout out to Demolition. Sorry, you can go ahead to question number 3, but I had to say that because the Demolition is the shiznit.
All right, question number 3. This professional wrestler has become one of the most recognizable professional wrestlers in the history of Japanese professional wrestling. Known for his trademark face paint and blowing red and green mist.
Tajiri.
Great Muda.
No. Great Muda is correct. John Cosper has
Dang it! No!
Game Show Challenge.
I lost again. Dang it!
Know your history, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so because you won, here is your music. Let me get it cute.
All I do is win, no matter what.
Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go
up. Hey!
And they say yeah, and they say yeah, and they say
Congratulations, John. How you feel, man? How you feeling?
Hey, it feels good. It feels good to come out on top. I'd say that there's a lot of history I know. There's a lot of gaps that I don't know. So, you know, thank goodness I'm a New Japan fan, right?
No doubt about it. Well, listen, John, we want to do one last thing before you go, man. We want to, thank you, as always, for being a loyal member of the Wrestle Talk family. We'd love to have you back on before 2019 is over. And, man, tell us just one more time how people can get the newest and latest writing by John Cosper. I know, this deal with the original Black Panther, the first Black Panther, is such a huge deal, especially since we're on the heels of Black History Month. Man, tell us all about it and how people can find out more about everything you're doing.
People can find my website, eatsleepwrestle.com. They can find the book already on Amazon.com. If they want an autographed copy, they can email me directly, and my email address is on the website. I am offering a special right now, and if people want to, bundle a couple of books, they can get free shipping in the U.S. I've got copies of Bluegrass Brawlers and Louisville's Greatest Show, and I have copies of both Dr. D and Madman Pondo's books signed. If anybody needs to pick those up, and again, I'll bundle those with the Black Panther and ship them out to you with free shipping right now. So get in touch with me. If you want to buy more than a couple books, we'll work out a special deal. Yes, love to see people reading and learning the history of the business and reading some great stories. And I'm attracted to stories of people who are underdogs, people who've been forgotten or overlooked. And I really love, I've enjoyed working with Dr. D and Pondo and telling the story of the Black Panther has been a real thrill. And being able to turn people's eyes on to what these people contributed to the business.
No doubt about it. Joe, you want to say goodbye to John before we close out tonight's show?
Oh, man, just thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on. We always enjoy talking to you and finding out, what new books that you have written, and you definitely have a love for professional wrestling, and we respect you for that. And hopefully we get you to come on here once again sometime soon.
Hey, I'd be glad to do it anytime. You mentioned Wrestling Revolver. I've got relatives in Des Moines, and I'm hoping one of these days, knock on wood, I'll be in town when Revolver's going on. Maybe I can meet you guys out there sometime. We can check it out. It's a heck of a show, and it's a place I definitely want to get to one of these days.
John, you better let me know. Make sure you message me when you're starting to plan that trip, because that's only 3 hours away from yours truly. So I mean it. I'm going to hold you to this. Make sure you reach out, bro, because we have got to hang out together, have some of that Midwest barbecue that we're so famous for, and watch some of the best professional wrestling in the world today. I'm super excited. John, thank you once again for coming on, man. You have a great night, brother. We appreciate it.
You too, guys. Always my pleasure.
Adios. Peace.
Oh, my goodness. What a freaking show.
Well,
talking about Combat Zone Wrestling to Bob McGee and then John Cosper, and wow, what a show.
Wow.
I love the Wrestle podcast.
What a show. Jonesy, what a show indeed. Bro, I went from waking up, finding out I had to go across the state at 9 a.m. to find out that my truck had eggs all over it. Damn you teenagers, I hate you to death. And then from going to Lowe's to crashing into the back of a Toyota Tacoma to having to drive all the way to hell out here and start work at 10 p.m. Believe it or not, your boy is getting ready to clock in for like a 10-hour shift. Oh, shut up. Stop crying back there, Stitch Nut. The only thing that could make me feel better is if your stinking asses share this podcast replay. If you're still listening to us live, please share, please comment, please support. We have razors on discount, cheaper than Gillette, ladies and gentlemen, at the WrestleTalkPodcast.com. They ship them to your house. There's no subscriptions, no contracts, just the best razors in the world at a discounted price. Every time you purchase, we get a little bit of a kickback. Universe Mania 5 is 30 days away. The latest and greatest version of Universe Mania, which is our wrestling watch party. We've got, WWE 2K tournaments. We've got professional wrestlers from all around at the event, signing autographs, taking pictures. And of course, we are an esports, man, the premier place to see any sporting event anywhere. I'm not just saying the Midwest or whatever. I'm talking about anywhere. Shout out to Be Well and the good people over there. DeJuan Mills, I love you. Thank you for making things happen. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, customized Wrestle Talk Podcast mugs. We will put your name on it, whatever you want us to inscribe on the glass. It's true engraving, okay? Not just that stuff they put over the top of it, for a total of $20 with your customization. Please continue to support the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Jonesy, I want you to hit me with that Black Republican and then the freestyle one more time so we can close out episode 236 properly. Ladies and gentlemen, we're all over social media at Wrestle Talk Cast. For my man Stitch Nut, Nightmare Jones, I am the Night Owl. We'll be back here next week. No way, no how we're going to miss it. And in the meantime, we'll see y'all at AEW, WLW, and my man Jonesy's probably working somewhere this weekend. Please hit me with some gangster shit before we get out of here, man. I got to go put in 12 hours. I'm already tired, and I wish I could have another beer, but I can't. Damn it. Jonesy, intern, you know what to do, man. Take us out of here the right way, baby.
Yo, what up? Night Owl. Nightmare Jones. What up, Wrestle Talk fam? Do it for y'all. Check me out. Kick in the door, waving the 4-4. Even them haters can't hate us no more. To unlock your door, cause we got some more. Every Wednesday we here, keeping it raw. Night Owl, Nightmare Jones, and all the best guests. Like a double barrel pointed right at your chest. Wrestle Talk Podcast.com. Smashing and killing it like the night of the prom.
We out, baby.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.
I love you.
Goodbye.
Maribel, if you see this, I love you. I'll see you guys on Friday. Peace. Hell of a show, boy.
Yeah.
Now life gets real again.
All week.